You guys ready for a brand new sentence? Okay, listen to this. Turn-based strategy RPG Metroidvania with immersive sim elements. My name is Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman, and welcome to King's Vein. Hello everyone, if you enjoy what I do, including my coverage of very, very cool indie turn-based strategy RPGs, then a like on this video and a subscription to the channel would be very much appreciated. Also, apologies if my voice sounds a little out of whack or there's weird cuts in the video. I am very under the weather right now. And while I can already hear some of you saying, Tom, why are you recording this video? Bills need to be paid. So, ad rev and the algorithm need to be satiated. If you would like to help make sure that I can sometimes afford to not push myself when my voice is cracking constantly to record videos by directly supporting the channel, then you can do so via my YouTube memberships and my Patreon down in the description below. So thank you so very much. You'll see the names of all of the fine folks who directly support the channel at the end of the video. This one was recommended to me by the lovely Coffee Potato. If you're not familiar with his work, I'll have a link to his channel in the description. You can see it here on the screen as well. Absolutely phenomenal creator. You should absolutely be following him if you aren't already. But he brought up Rad Codex's games to me over the holiday season, and I decided to go and check out King's Vein as the latest release. Boy, oh boy. Was not expecting the magic that I found. So, what exactly is King's Vein? King's Vein is a pixelated, kind of like Super Nintendo style game from an indie dev, which I know some of you are probably rolling your eyes like, oh wow, I've never heard this story before, but hear me out here, that very much embraces the classic style of tactics games, right? You've got grid-based mechanics, you've got a number of different jobs, a bunch of different abilities with different areas of effect, both in terms of range and in what tiles they impact, different status effects, different elements, and then ways that you can interact with the terrain to get different bonus effects or have other beneficial things occur for you. However, it also very much embraces the idea of being in a relatively open world with aspects of that world not being available to you until you get the tools to actually navigate through them, and encouraging you to run around and explore and see what it is that you can find. This is also combined with the idea that pretty much everything can be interacted with in one way or another. Running around on the world map and see something that looks kind of suspicious, smack it with your sword. Maybe you'll break open a bubble that has an item or a rock that's hiding a hidden passageway or a door that has loot behind it. Or maybe you can walk into a random house and find a side quest that you can then just run off and do. There's no world map here in the way that you would expect from something like Final Fantasy Tactics with random battles. You can traverse between different parts of the map using the world map, but once you're in, you're running around with your party, and battles just kind of happen once you wander into their area of effect, which is very, very cool. The game has a really awesome kind of new retro wave color palette to it that I really enjoy. Lots of purples and blues and blacks and reds. That gives it a very sort of eerie, ethereal look, which is helped by the fact that there's no humans in this. Everyone is a lizard monster or a fox person or a rock golem that's sentient. You have lizard horses that you ride around as cavalry. It's a very interesting world setup that makes for some fun options in terms of what abilities you have on hand, since you're not worried about dealing with largely like flesh and blood creatures until you do, and then you can hit them with a blood spike that deals massive damage because, like, blood magic is cool, man. Even if people are golems, it's pretty great. You start the game by being able to create a character with one of 3 different classes that have different amounts of HP, MP, different special skills, etc., and you'll be able to open up with a full party as well as your steed, so you can start running around and wreaking havoc immediately. Every single character that you have under your control has access to all of the same jobs or classes, as this game refers to them, from what I've been able to see anyway, and every class that you're able to unlock requires a certain amount of XP in other different class combinations, again, very similar to, say, the job wheel in Final Fantasy Tactics. What's cool is that every single one of these jobs has a lot of different synergies with one another in a very intelligent way. Like, maybe you're able to get bonus fire and lightning damage on one job, only to find that another job has bonus effects for combining fire and lightning damage together. So it's like, okay, well, I want to stay in this earlier job for a while so I can get those bonus support skills before I go into this later one that's going to be able to make the most use of them, that type of thing. Leveling is handled in a pretty interesting way as well. You're not really looking at gaining HP, MP, stats, things like that from your actual character levels. That pretty much all comes through what a gear that you're equipping. Your XP goes solely into what abilities and skills you unlock, which can potentially give you bonuses to some of your stats, but largely are going to come in the form of different types of attacks or different sort of support upgrades to benefit different play styles for different characters. That might sound pretty simple right off the bat, but when you consider that every single job has 3 different categories of skill and can have anywhere from 3 to 6 skills in that category, and there's like 12, 15 classes in the game, and you can equip whatever skills that you want across different characters, you can see how things can spiral into pretty ridiculous builds pretty quickly if you put even a modicum of thought into the effort of building a character. So I'm very excited to see where I can get in the end game, based just on the couple of interesting things that I've seen in the early game. Gear is also very important, not only in the fact that it gives you different stats, but that different weapons have different attack ranges and different attack patterns. A basic sword, it can hit something that's adjacent to you. A mace, it can hit things that are adjacent to you or one square diagonal to you, which can be very beneficial. Spears obviously can hit 2 things in a line. Bows and crossbows can attack at range. Bows are powerful because you don't need to reload them. Crossbows, you do need to reload, so I haven't really found a ton of reasons to run crossbows over bows just yet, but I imagine there's probably different skills you can get along the way that do different things for you. You can have options like lanterns to light things on fire, or just stones that you can huck as items to deal chip damage here and there. And that's where I really want to start getting into the immersive sim stuff. We can talk a lot about all the different mechanics and jobs and classes and yada yada yada, but I was saying, like, this is kind of an immersive sim on top of being a Metroidvania turn-based strategy RPG. And the reason I say that is there's a ton of care that's been given to being able to interact with pretty much everything in the world. What is an immersive sim, you might ask? Well, if you are putting a character in a game world and you give that character as many different ways to interact with the game world as an equivalent in real life would logically have, then you're getting pretty close to being an immersive sim. And Kingsvein does a lot of that. Find a random keg and you have an empty mug. Well, you can interact with that keg to fill it up with a mana restoration potion. You see an oil cask sitting around, throw some fire at it to blow it up. Want to be able to just push a rock into a gap, you can just do that to get it out of your way. Want to push a dude into a gap to remove him from the battlefield permanently, you can do that as well. Grass blocking a doorway, burn it down. Spikes that'll damage your character if you try to walk over them, just jump over them. There's a lot of different options here in how you can interact with the environment, both in and out of combat. That's the type of gameplay that you're looking at here. And given the fact that you do everything all at the same time on one map, that can lead to some very interesting scenarios. Like, hey, I'm walking up and I'm able to see that a group of enemies in this room all clustered together, but they don't see me yet. Walk up behind them and cast a big quake spell and deal a ton of damage to them to start the fight off and get yourself a huge advantage. Like, there's a ton of different interesting things I was able to do before I even started really getting into some of the more nitty-gritty aspects of Kingsvein, so I can only imagine what's going to be on offer as you get further. As far as music, graphics, sound effects, etc. are concerned, they're all phenomenal. It was slightly hard on the eyes at first when I was playing on the Steam Deck, just because of the more compressed visuals that the Steam Deck requires, because, you know, being a small handheld device. But as soon as I got on the game on my PC, that cleared up immediately. I imagine that's just a Steam Deck issue. And again, like, visually, it's a really cool style. The OST is a bop. Every single track is so very good, and all the sound effects feel really chunky and classic in a way that was very satisfying to me as someone who grew up playing a lot of games on things like the Super Nintendo. The story itself is also pretty intriguing. You are a knight who is sent by your liege lord, essentially, to go and investigate why a particular vassal kingdom hasn't been responding to requests for information, tithes, etc., only to find that the entire kingdom has essentially fallen to a mad prince who's using wisps to reanimate the dead and essentially has made his own insular little pauper kingdom. The people are in shambles, roving bands of bandits are essentially the only law in the land, and the king is up to, or really the Silver Prince if you want to be specific, but the quote-unquote ruler is doing whatever the heck it is that he's doing way off to the side, and it's our job to stop him. You have a pretty interesting little cast of characters: the loyal best friend who's a knight, the sort of roguish outsider who's your guide to the inner workings, an injured lad who serves as a merchant and informant, and then a bunch of other NPCs that you encounter along the way. Even though I've only played 3 hours of Kingsvein thus far, I absolutely fell in love with it. You can see how I fell into that love for the game if you check out the VOD. I'll have that linked down below for the first stream, and I can only imagine what other magical stuff I'm going to encounter as I go. I was told by Coffee Potato that the game takes approximately 20 to 30 hours to complete one run of, but that there's a lot of replay value here with different class loadouts, different difficulties, different skill options, and he's actually been experimenting with some fun stuff like a lantern-only run where you just burn things forever, which I can actually see giving you a lot of different options. To say nothing of the ability to pick up and throw items, to be able to customize skills and weapons with different gems. There's a foraging aspect. I mean, hell, I haven't even talked about the difficulty options yet. Check this out. The difficulty settings in Kingsvein, honestly, one of the most interesting aspects to it. So, of course, right off the bat, you have your normal, like, easy, normal, hard, very hard, tactician, whatever. And that would modify your stats and enemy stats as you would probably expect. Like on the easiest difficulty, enemies have less HP, less magic and attack power, you have more movement range, etc. On the baseline, everything is evened out. On higher difficulties, enemies have more HP, more physical and magical attack power, etc., etc. But what's interesting is you have a secondary difficulty slider that changes how quickly the enemy makes decisions. And now, you might be wondering, like, what the hell does that mean? So basically, on the lowest setting, the NPCs will act as quickly as possible, even if that means making the stupidest decisions as possible, so very fast, very reckless. Whereas on the other side of the scale, at the highest level, the NPCs will absolutely take longer so that the computer can actually sit and think about all the different options that are available to it. Again, with kind of like all those Immersive elements, like, oh, I can pull this person with a grappling hook into a pit and then punch this person across the wall to have some impact damage go off and knock them into an oil canister that'll then blow up and deal damage to their allies. Like, it'll take the time to actually think about that stuff, which means it'll take longer for NPCs to take their actions, but it'll hurt really bad once they do. And it's such an interesting way to let you kind of modify your gameplay experience. Like, if you just want to cruise and have like really tough enemies that are really stupid, you can do that. Or if you want to have really smart enemies that maybe aren't as physically and endurance-wise imposing, you can do that as well. And you can have a mix of those two across the entire scale. I haven't had the chance to experiment with it too much. I've had both settings on the second highest difficulty level just to make an overall challenging experience, and it's felt great thus far. It doesn't slow anything down particularly to any degree that I can really tell. It's not like you're sitting there for 30 seconds between every enemy move, but the fact that that option is there and you're actually able to manipulate the way the CPU thinks is such a cool option, and something that I would love to see in more games going forward. Because people always complain like, oh, this game is too easy, the AI doesn't make good decisions, yada, yada, yada. Well, maybe give the AI the ability to make better decisions, even if it takes a little bit longer, right? It's such a cool system. I absolutely adore it. Really, I just can't stop thinking about Kingsvein ever since I played it last night. Just the fact that, like, you have charge spells. Charge mechanics are here. Hello, me. Absolutely shouting from the rooftops about how good charge magic is as a mechanic, a way to balance things, and everyone's like, oh, charge sucks in FFT. Well, guess what? Kingsvein has it too, not in the same way, but it's here and it lets you use some really powerful skills. The fact that those types of charge skills or skills that make you like wait to attack or lure enemies into your range, whatever, gives so much value to the ability to prevent enemies from moving or from moving too far. The fact that you have all these different synergies with different elemental abilities, the fact that you have a steed that can learn skills as you level it up, how you have all these different jobs that have really cool different passive effects effects, but really creative active effects as well. Like one job that can throw down what is essentially a giant magical pulsating thorn bush that'll deal damage and knock enemies back around it, and then do that again if it gets hit, so you can actually pick it up and throw it into the enemy after you place it to do it again and knock people into walls for impact damage, or into each other for impact damage, or into pits so that they just die. Like, there's so much cool stuff there. Everything the enemies have, you can loot. Like, how annoying is it when you fight a big bad boss and it's like, oh, they've got the super cool +1 magical sword of darkness that can insta-kill something, and then you take them out and it's just gone. Like, that should just be laying there unless it, like, frittered away into dust, which should be a story element if nothing else. Why can't I pick that up and use it? In Kingsvein, you can. Enemy has a really cool mace that's more powerful than anything you've got. Well, you killed them, now pick it up off their body. Oh, an enemy has a really cool cloak that gave them a bunch of evasion and some extra magic damage. Cool. You killed them, you can pick it up. You can put it on your guys. You can customize what their builds are. Like, there's so much thought that went into every different aspect of the mechanics of this game, and I know I've only scratched the surface. I can only imagine what I'm going to encounter as I go further. So this is an absolutely huge recommend from me, even after only 3 hours of play. Technically 6 across 2 different campaigns, but still, I've played about 3 hours per campaign that I've done thus far. It's absolutely something that I'm planning to stream the rest of, so keep an eye out for those streams as I put them live. And especially if you're watching this within a week of release, the game is actually on sale right now, 25% off, or maybe it's 20% off, one or the other, on Steam for its 1-year anniversary. So I've got a link to the Steam page in the description, especially, again, if you're watching this video on release, you have the opportunity to go pick this game up for cheap. I highly encourage that you check it out one way or the other if you're a fan of tactics, because Rad Codex clearly knows exactly what he's doing when it comes to playing with different mechanics from different tactics games. If you are passionate for the genre like I am, I think you'll find a lot to love here. And if you're just looking for a fun, chill, kind of retro, turn-based experience in general, I think Kingsvein has a lot to offer you as well. Thank you so much to Rad Codex for making such awesome games. I will absolutely be checking out the rest of your back catalog as well, and hope each and every one of you enjoys whatever it is that you choose to experience here. My name has been Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman. I'm going to wrap this one up here so I can rest my voice, because I can feel it starting to crack. Hopefully I've edited out all of the various different coughs and schnuffles that I had throughout the recording of this video, because it was not pretty. And again, thank you to everyone who has directly supported the channel for all this time. You can see all those names, both patrons and YouTube members, scrolling by on the right side of the screen right now. I'm going to have another Kingsvein stream ready to go as soon as my voice is able to handle it. I cannot wait to play more of this game, man, and I hope you enjoy it as well. But with all that said, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all have a good night. Stay safe and healthy out there. And remember, be good to each other. Bye now.